I moved into this house 40 years ago. I couldn't believe it's been that long. It's interesting because we lived in the casino, my parents did, for 34 years. The art here, I see something, and if I have room for it and can afford it, I have it. So there's no rhyme, no reason, except that it means something to me. It's just me and my personality. It's what I like. So my parents came in 1947 from Nebraska originally, in Kansas. My dad was an electrician, and my mom became a teacher. World War II came along, and my dad went into the service. During the war, my mom moved to California, and she fell in love with Pasadena. And then my dad got out of the service, and he said, "Donna, will you marry me?" And according to her, she said, "Sure, if you come to Pasadena." So he moved to Pasadena, and they got married. It turns out that his boss was the cousin to Malcolm Renton, who worked for the Santa Catalina Island Company. He had asked his cousin, "Can you recommend someone to me who's got the qualifications I need for the casino electrical work?" And he says, "Sure." They got here, they interviewed for the job, and my dad was really excited about it, and my mom was not excited about it. She really didn't want to stay, but she knew my dad did so much, so she said to him, "I will stay if there's a library in town." And there was a teeny tiny library, and they just had this little tiny place and a few books. Mom says, "Okay, there's a library here, so we will stay. I'll stay." So thank you, Lord, there was a library there. And that's how they came to Catalina. Three of us were born here. My two older sisters, Alice, and my sister, Lynn, who passed away recently. We all went to Avalon High School. Oh, and I get to throw this in on camera, too. This is so nice. We all graduated as valedictorians. Every year when the graduation came on and they mentioned the valedictorian, they would read the plaque of the 5 previous years. So when I was valedictorian, I was excited. They'd read all 3 of our names, and for some reason the principal forgot about it and didn't do it, so I didn't get to hear all 3 Eisenhut girls were valedictorians. Going to high school, it was interesting. A part of the idea was just the fact that you went to kindergarten through 12th grades, and so you knew everybody. I think in my class there were 18 of us who'd gone to school the whole time, and so that could be good, or that could maybe not be quite so good. Yeah, so Alice and Lynn, after graduating from college, got their jobs, and they stayed over town, and then I stayed here, and I'm still here. I'm glad to be here. Mom! Mother! Mother! Why did I do that, Alice?
When we wanted to get into the casino, we had to have them throw a key down to us.
We didn't even have a key to get back into the casino because we were too young, and so we didn't have quite the freedom outside as other people did who didn't live in the casino. It was great. I mean, I can't think of anything that we didn't have growing up here. I thought it was a great time. Living in the casino was a very great life, and it was unusual, and so we actually were museum pieces, as I call it. When Patricia Moore did the museum, she had a picture of us as a family picture saying the family of the casino. And people would walk into the movie theater where we were working and say, "I've seen a picture of you in the museum." Since we lived in the casino, you just knew as you were growing up, someday you'd be working in the casino theater. Started as the usherette, and you'd have to have a little flashlight and tell people to please be quiet, no smoking, and take your feet off the back of the chairs. And I did not like doing that.
Okay, this is the Avalon Theater, and this is where I spent the first 7 years of my working life.
My sister Lynn one time was selling tickets, and there was a movie that came up, and they'd call and say, "What movie is playing today?" And she would say to them, "Sss." And they'd say, "What are you saying?" And she'd go, "Sss." And then finally one day, Tommy Clements, who was the manager, heard my sister doing that and said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm just saying the name of the movie." And the movie just had S, 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 S. So he says, "Don't sss them. Tell them S, 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 S." When I went over town the first time when I was in college to go to a movie on the mainland, I was going to the movie, and I was so shocked when they showed me into this tiny little theater with 100 seats, just shaped like a rectangle. This theater can't be surpassed, I don't think, anywhere. And so this is a major, when I come back and see it now, having not seen it for a year or so, it's like, wow. So it's a Page organ. What's interesting about this is it has tons of sound effects. When you hear a snare drum playing, there's actually a snare drum that's being played. When you hear a boat whistle, there's a teeny tiny boat whistle. The whole boat's not up there, just the boat whistle. But they have a gunshot, and there's not a real gun, obviously, but there's a fake gun that shoots out. And above us here, behind the gold, is where we have all the sound effects and the speakers for the organ. That's just really pretty neat. And I've gotten to go up there with my dad a few times to see all the different instruments that are being played up there. My dad, he was a very quiet man, but he had a good sense of humor, but very quiet. And what I can remember him doing, we'd be coming up from the theater after work and walking up the ramps. And it was dark in there. We could have turned the lights on, but that's too much work. So I'd walk up the ramps, hanging onto the hand railing, and then going really close to the wall around the corner. And as I did so, you'd make the turn, and my dad would be standing there just straight. And so as you turned the corner, zap, you bumped right into him. He didn't do it much after that. One time I hit him really hard in the stomach from that. But that was fun. But it was just following him around because he used to let me go anywhere he would, he's working electrical work, doing any kind of work. When we were around, he would take us around. And that was just fun to do that. There were lots of events at the casino that we got to partake in. A lot of it when we were kids just watching, which is a lot of fun. I think there was up to 6,000 people in the early days when there were no, when the ballroom was a whole floor set up. You could have, 3,000 couples, I think.
It's the world's largest circular dancing ballroom. This is where your grandparents, your great-grandparents, everyone came from 1929 all the way up to the present day. The best bands in the whole world played here.
At the end of a big band dance, you'd have 2,000 high heels walking down the ramps. We could hear it in our house. We'd be nice and asleep, and next thing you know, we're hearing the high heels going down for half an hour. There were the big band dances, and every night we were allowed to go down into the ballroom, and we could just sort of sneak around and watch things. And didn't matter. Nothing's happening but dancing and stuff, and we're not hearing any secrets being told, because like the Shriners Convention, we couldn't go down because I guess they were telling secrets. Who knows what they were talking about. In 1960, 61, we had the Dick Clark Bandstand there, and that's probably my favorite one. Jackie DeShannon was there. What the world needs now is Love, Sweet Love. Paul Peterson was there. Peter and Gordon was there. Then Brian Hyland, who was Sealed with a Kiss. And we had a couple of band leaders. One of them, Ray Noval, took my sisters and I on down to the beach to help practice swimming. In the 60s, the year I remember the best was Russ Morgan was playing. His band was playing all summer long. Russ Morgan was a man that I really enjoyed with his band there, and that was because I played the piano. I played the piano in the ballroom. I had to set my time with Russ Morgan practicing and Jani practicing. And he heard me practicing one day, and he had a lot of pointers for me. And one thing he said was, and this is why I ended up doing it, he says, you need to learn to play hymns, because hymns are some of the hardest songs to play, according to him. So that's what got me playing in the community church, is playing the Sunday school and playing the piano at the services because of Russ Morgan's encouragement. Playing the piano in the ballroom was interesting. To me, it was scarier because I practiced quite often at night in the dark. So I had one light on the piano, and then I'd have to run in the dark from the piano. I'd run across to the apartment door where there was a light turned on so I could get there. For our friends, what they like to do is they like to come up and slide in their socks back and forth across the ballroom floor. So this was our playground. You can tell it was meant to be a playground because if you look at it, you'll see a baseball line going all the way around here, and you have bases and everything. So we played kickball here, and we played baseball here until she
Broke one of the crystals up there, and I broke a whole bunch of wine bottles.
in an old bar that used to be a movable bar.
Yeah.
So Dad said, no more baseball.
The other thing that we did, we played archery, and I shot an arrow into the air, and it went right into one of the lights up there, and it stuck there for many years.
And once a year, my mother would have Dad move all the tables and chairs. It would be like this, and then she'd have Girl Scout play day here. And the Girl Scouts would come up from Brownie age to Girl Scouts, the older Girl Scouts, and play here various games. And Mom always laughed because she said, we spend all this time giving them some food, getting these games together to play, and what do they want to do at the last hour? Slide in their socked feet back and forth across the ballroom floor. The one thing that we did do is I had 3 friends, and a lot of people might remember the Lion family that came over here, but there were 3 sons. So the Lions boys and I would pretend we were the Beatles, and we did that in the ballroom. And that was really fun because you had the whole ballroom. We were on stage, and we had tennis rackets for our guitars. And I was able to go up to the sound room and turn on the sound system, put on a Beatles record. So you'd hear the Beatles playing throughout the ballroom, which was really fun. And then we would put on microphones and we'd sing with the records. And one time when we're doing it, my dad comes running up into the ballroom floor, not looking very happy. And he said I'd done the wrong switch. And so the Beatles were being played out across the harbor. And he was not happy with that. A gentleman that worked at the casino, Johnny Carlin, I think his last name was Carlin. Johnny was one of the gardeners, I believe, at the casino, and he'd seen us doing that. And so one day he walks up and he gives me this guitar he made for me, out of plywood, basically. It was sort of neat because the other guys all had to play with their tennis rackets, but I had my fancy guitar from Johnny Carlin. So again, he was one of the many people in the casino that worked there and just really gave us a grand time. What I had a great time doing was just, like I say, meeting people that performed there, but also the people, the cooks and such. I mean, my love of olives came from casino kitchen. Cooks would put out a jar of olives for me because they knew I'd come down every day and put 10 olives on my fingers. Okay, I don't know if my sister Alice or my sister Lynn taught me this, but this is their imitation and now my imitation of the creature from the Black Lagoon. One of the best movies ever. My mom had no idea this was happening. And she came one time when I'm putting olives on my fingers, and she says, Jani, she's going to tell me to stop. And the cook called her over and said, no, we put the can out for her, and she knows she can take 10 olives on her fingers, and then that's it. And then she walks away. So that kind of stuff was just so cool that would happen, getting to know people from that kind of thing. The community church was built in 1889. It's the first church in Avalon, and it's a church that I've gone to all of my life. The community church is a really big help in the city of Avalon. problems for anything, people can come and they talk to someone and say, I need this or I need that, and if we can do it, the church family will take care of it. I ring the bell now before the Sunday service. So I've been ringing this bell probably maybe just 2 or 3 years now, constantly now. I hadn't done it before. But ringing the bell was something that we sort of got to do as kids. If we came to Sunday school and didn't miss any Sundays, or if it was a special day for us, they'd say, you can come upstairs and you guys can ring the bell. So that was sort of fun. And now I'm excited about it because I'm ringing the bell every Sunday. During the coronavirus time, we're just having one service. So I'm just ringing the bell once at 9:15. But if we start 2 services again, I'll get to ring the bell 2 times Sunday morning. So it's just a blast. It's a lot of fun. But it does have a little bit of a technique. The first time I did it, the guy told me just pull the rope slowly. And I did. And I kept going down, going down, going down, going down, and I flipped the bell over. So that was the end of the first bell ringing, and Jonathan had to go up and fix the bell up. So far I haven't flipped the bell since that time. It's a lot of fun. So I ring the bell there, and I ring the chimes later on, so I'm a noisy person in this town.
The Chimes Tower was built in 1925, and over the years since then, it's become just a part of the ambient noise of Catalina. We formed a foundation to fix up the Chimes Tower, and one of the people that, of course, had to be on the board was Jani. She's been involved with the chimes all her life, really. I think she cares about them just as much as if they were her own chimes.
Follow me. Come on in. You're entering into the bottom layer, the mechanical room, as Charlie calls it, of the Chimes Tower. The chimes were built in 1926, and right here we have the chimes clock mechanism. The actual face for the clock used to be here, but we no longer have that. But you'll notice here, this is basically a piano player drum in here. The clock has no idea what time it is, so I could set it to any time I wanted to, and it would just ring. The chimes do ring every 15 minutes from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. People will tell you that chimes actually ring whenever they want to, and they're actually right. There's no schedule set on the chimes. Or I should say, for me playing the chimes, I always have to play, of course, I want to play Christmas time, then I'll play Easter, of course, Easter week, and then the holidays like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July. I play for special occasions, but the biggest time that people remember me for is in 2016, when the Chicago Cubs baseball team won the World Series. I went up and played the chimes, I think it was about midnight, and played Take Me Out to the Ball Game, so people would know the Cubs had won. And I've heard more about that from people than I did the first 47 years of playing the chimes. And then a lot of people ask about the keyboard, how do I play the chimes? And the chimes are played on this little keyboard right here. We have 20 notes that play from D to high A. This is a book of Deacon Tower chimes music. And chimes music was written specifically to be used on the Deacon Tower chimes over the years. The songs I play, I always start with I Left My Love in Avalon, and I like to end with Home on the Range. And so people know, they hear that I play the first song twice so they can actually try to recognize it, because it's hard to recognize sometimes. Then I play Home on the Range, and they know I'm done playing, I don't stand out there waiting for more songs to be played. And I can play pretty much whatever I want to play. They used to have a schedule for playing the chimes. The steamer would come in, and they'd play the chimes saying hello to the steamer. When the steamer left, they'd play the chimes saying goodbye to the steamer. But back in those days, the clock and the keyboard were both located down at the steamer dock. So you could watch the chimes player playing the chimes. And I never realized when I was a little kid walking by there so often, seeing someone play the chimes, that one day I'd be playing the chimes as well. Kathy Knight was the chimes player in 1967, went off to college. Dad asked me, did I want to play the chimes, since I was playing in the community church. And I said, sure, why not? And so I started, and that was almost 53 years ago, I think, going on 53 years now. So it's been a lot of fun.
And in some ways, they are Jani's chimes. They've come to be associated with her, and that's why it's so wonderful to have her on the board and to tell us what she thinks should be done and to work with us on trying to raise money.
I think the chimes are just not a proxy, but they're just a way for Jani to reach out to the community.
Playing the chimes is really, you're right, it's a way I give back to the city. And just because people enjoy it, so it just amazes me how many people tell me how much they've enjoyed that. And it's like one way I can give back to the city, and one way keep up a tradition that's been going for a long time.
She hasn't been doing it on her own. The Chimes Tower is actually two people, and that's Jani and Charlie Canby. And the two of them have pretty much worked as a team.
Most people here at Avalon know this guy by the name of Jack, but his name is not Jack.
Nope, not Jack.
Jack of all trades.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, but his name is Charlie Canby, and he does tons of stuff around Avalon, as you know, fixes everything, but he also works on the chimes.
Been doing that since '84.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So if you want, I'll show you some of the parts of it. They're really fascinating. So here's all our 20 notes. Each note is hung by a wire cable. People think these all look like mailboxes, but they're actually the covers for the striker mechanism. Here's a note that gets played a lot, and this is the C, or the middle C, that's in the Westminster Melody. There's a leather tip on each one of these hammers or strikers to protect the bronze bell. These are bronze that are alloyed with tin to give it a real crisp, sharp sound.
When I finished college, I came back home and I asked my parents individually, what is it that you know I like to do better than anything in the entire world? And I asked Mom, and she said, drive. And my dad said, drive. And it sounded like a wonderful thing to do. So I said, I want to go. They said, fine, go for it. Went to the California Trucking Association, got my license there. I was working one day at the casino point, and Daryl Mubblehill came by and said, we need some drivers to work for us, but we've never had a woman drive before. How do you think it'll work? And I was thinking, it'll be fine, why not? Employee of the Year, 1998. In case you didn't hear that, Employee of the Year, everybody.
She always made sure I knew that she was the number one driver. But I was actually number one, and Ron Lauder was number two, but that was the joke between us. She was always number one. Right. It was always sort of like a duel between us, who would be the first driver out. So one time she got out ahead of me, and we get up to the airport, and she made sure she got out ahead of me at the airport, and we went down to Rancho Escondido. And I've known Jani for years, and she's a pretty tough gal. She doesn't take any guff, I'll tell you that right now. So we get down there, and on the way down there, she's ahead of me, and I'm coming along the road, and I see these two dead king snakes on the road. So I go, whoa, and they're little small ones. So I stop my rig, I get out of the rig, and I pick up the snakes, put them in the rig, continue down to Rancho Escondido, where we stopped to have the show and refreshments down there at the time. Jani's there. I'm number one, you know? And I go, hey, Jani, look what I found on the road. She came over and I pulled out that little king snake and she jumped out of her shoes. She screamed, said, get that away from me. Get that away from me. I'm afraid of snakes. I hate snakes. And I've never seen Jani act like that before, but she was always, tough. So if, you ever want to have Jani stay away from you, just show her a snake. She doesn't like snakes at all.
And this is my tour bus, my Flxble Flyer, my favorite buses to drive.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
This is a Flxble, 1953 Flxble Flyer, and it's one of the 2 Flxble buses that I drove for my whole entire career with the Avalon Company. This is the bus that if you were the newbie to the crew, you would drive this bus. The reason being is it had no power steering and it was a stick shift. So when you had put 33 people in it and you're going up the Summit Road, it was very hard to get around the corners. So you're very tired. If I drove 4 of these in a day to the airport in the sky, by the end of the day, that day, like everybody else, I've had enough of this bus. I'm very tired. So this is just one of my favorite buses. And it was nice too when people would come back years later.
And remember
There's
you,
some that came
yes.
back every year and they'd be looking for a certain bus driver and say,
Right.
and that was great, yeah. But one man that I really remember, his name was Ernest Williams, but he called himself the Cowboy. He kept in touch with me. He'd come every year to the island until about 10 years later when he passed away, and he made sure that he came over to the bus tours and he looked for me.
We all got the stupid questions.
Yeah, the one I liked was, is there water all the way around the island? And when that happened to me, I would sit there and I'd look in my mirror to see their face, to see, are they making a joke at me? Or is that a serious question? And then I'd always just answer them, yes, there's water all the way around the island. And I wouldn't say anything else. But then pretty soon the laughter would start in the bus, the front of the bus, and all the way through they're laughing. And then I felt bad because the person usually goes,
They were serious, yeah.
because they were serious. Or else one that we used to do all the time that they didn't ask, but we would tell them, there's one spot on the way to the airport that you can stop. You can see water on both sides of the island. And so you would just tell the people, oh, this is great. It's a clear day today, so if you take a look on the right, you can see the Pacific Ocean, and look on the left, and you can see the Atlantic Ocean. A number of people believed it was Atlantic and Pacific Ocean that they were seeing there, and actually the gentleman who was at the Chamber of Commerce the last time, he said, that's why people keep asking us about the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean, because you bus drivers are telling them. Well, we're not, yeah, that's true, we did tell them. But those kind of things, I figured, if you say something that is so silly, if they want to believe that, they may believe that. But we never said anything that anything that was not true, at least not on purpose. But also, I do have fond memories. I loved working with everybody because we had a nice little group together. It's Catalina life, but also it's just driving life. We all just had a nice camaraderie. And we always just waved. And that's
They'll give
actually
you the signal. There's a bus.
Yeah, there's a bus behind you there and stuff. So camaraderie was fantastic. And then the bus driving itself I cannot say how much I love driving. It's great. You'd leave a hustle bustle of Avalon, go out to the interior, and then you're out there for 3.5 hours. Beautiful bliss. I had people who, they just think sometimes bus drivers aren't the brightest people in the world. And they let you know that sometimes, but you know what? I think they're wrong. But also, I drove 26 years the buses, and the last day of work was as good as my first day of work. If I'm stressed out or I'm having problems or I just want to go have a good time, by the time I drive up to the interior, I'm no longer stressed out. Isolation is really powerful. It's so nice to go out there and you just can be by yourself and be with the Lord or be with other people too, but it's a beautiful place to be. And my dad got sick, so I came back to help with him. And when he passed away, I was all set to leave the island. And then I took one of my rides out to the interior of the island. And I just drove past the airport, and it was a beautiful sunset, and I sat there looking at the sunset, and then I said to myself, and I often do talk to myself, and I answer myself too. Interesting conversations. But I said to myself, Jani, do you want to stay on the island where you grew up and lived all the time and have people say you're just too afraid to leave? Or why are you staying where you grew up? And I answered myself, do I really care what people think? And myself answered, no, I really don't care. I want to stay here. Growing up here is fantastic, and it's great. But when you graduate from high school, if you're able to afford it and to do it, leave the island to go to school, to go to work, to go travel, whatever you want to do, move off the island. Then come back here because you want to be here. I stayed here because this is where I wanted to be. And that's what I want to tell the young people is stay here because this is where you want to be. Getting ready for this interview made me just go back and realize how many people are intertwined in your lives, which I knew before, but I didn't recognize it. I feel that if you are ready to help people over here, people are ready to help you. And even if you're not ready to help people, they're ready to help you. So to me, the people is the biggest impact. As long as you're happy in life, it doesn't matter what kind of a job you have, what you're doing. What's helped me a lot here has been just the strength that Jesus has given me over the years when things happen here and there. So I figure with Catalina, Jesus first, Catalina second in my life, I've had a perfect life. My one regret is that there are lots of nooks and crannies in the casino. And in one section, when you go into it, you saw in red paint where they said the war is over. And someone wrote that in red paint, the war is over, World War II. And that was really cool, that was there. But that would be my biggest regret, saying, darn, I didn't get to make my mark somewhere where people wouldn't really see it, you know. Turns out, no regrets.
Okay, before you get started, Nick, just wanted to say Fred was saying there was a story, something about Jani. He found a snake one time.
There's the look.
Yeah.
I just went like,
This snake that he showed me was about 20 feet long, though.
nope.
Yeah, Jani, you're naturally funny. Your comedic timing is spot on. But some of those jokes.
They're bad, huh? That's because of the bus driving jokes, that's why. So you have a raven and you have a crow. A raven has 10 pinion feathers. A crow has 9 pinion feathers. So the difference between a raven and a crow is just a matter of opinion.
Now watch, she'll answer her phone now that you've done that.
But no, she won't answer her phone. Trust me. Everybody has to.
Leave a message, and Her Majesty may return your call if she so desires. Bye.
Hey, Your Majesty, it's Jeff and Allison checking in. Want to know what you're up to? Give us a call. Take care. Bye, Jani. So, Jani is the self-proclaimed queen of Catalina Island. In any case, it's a true honor to have gotten to know Her Majesty.